issue 1 of our small group newsletter, I wrote about the importance of connecting faith to community. If you saw the article, you'll know that a lot of that material, as well as this training, came from a book by Reggie Joiner called Lead Small. I definitely recommend you taking a look at it. It's actually written to youth leaders about student ministry, but it's hugely helpful for small groups for people of all ages. So while we may know that connecting our faith to community is important not only for our small group members, but also for ourselves, the question that we have as small group leaders is, how can we do it? And actually, the answer is pretty simple. We just have to learn to be present. So the idea of being present sounds simple enough, but you and I both know that something can sound simple, but actually not be that easy. So what I want to do over the next couple of minutes is give you 3 steps that are practical ways for you as a small group leader to be present. So the first step is to show up predictably. Reggie Joiner talks about this in Lead Small, in this idea of how do you show up predictably. It's obvious, it's straightforward what that means, right? Anytime that your small group is meeting, your members, the people who come to the group, should be able to count on the fact that you're going to be there, that you're going to be present. It seems like such a simple thing. Why is this a big deal? But actually, this is one of the most important things. If you got nothing else out of the training, the best thing you can do for your small group is to show up predictably, because this means that you'll be able to build trust, you'll be able to build relationships, and this is what allows you to build community. Joiner says in his book, everybody needs someone who knows their name and what's happening in their life. Trust is the bedrock of community. So in order for us to build trust, we have to be committed to showing up predictably. So our second step is another simple one, in theory, easy to understand, but maybe not simple to do. The second one is to show up mentally. Now, all of us have busy lives, we have other jobs, and when we show up to small group, we're tired. We bring a lot of maybe baggage from the day or things that are happening in the week. So the important thing is not so much, you can't help it if you're a bit tired, if the kids kept you up late, or if you had a big project at work. Those things are the realities of life. But when we say show up mentally, is we want to make sure that we're not on our phones, that we're not texting people, that we're not updating our Facebook, that we're not sort of focused on other things that might be happening, that when we're there, we're present with the people who are there, that we're engaging in conversation, that we're interested in hearing about what's happening in their lives. Because the only way that we can build trust and build relationships is if we're mentally there to engage with people. That also includes then being prepared. If I'm not prepared with the lesson, if I haven't already done the work ahead of time, then I might be distracted by the fact of what am I going to teach and what am I supposed to do, that I won't be able to talk to the people around me. So showing up mentally is setting aside the distractions that you might bring in with you for a couple of hours and making sure that you do your best to be prepared ahead of time. And if you know that lesson planning is going to take extra time, then come talk to me. We'll get you a resource from the church library that takes less prep time so that you can really, really focus on building the relationships with your group, because that's where life change happens. Much more than any study you do or any video you watch, the most important thing you can do is build relationships with the other people in your group and be cognizant of the opportunities you have to pray for them and to speak into their lives. So the first thing was show up predictably. The second thing is to show up mentally. So the third and final step is probably my favorite one. This one is to show up randomly. Now these are these small acts that might seem insignificant or just sort of something you do on a whim, but in reality, these small things can have a big impact on your ability to disciple or encourage the people in your small group. So what do I mean by show up randomly? Well, there's lots of ways you can show up randomly. You can call people, you can text them, you can send birthday cards, you can post on their Facebook page when it's their birthday and say, hey, I was thinking of you today, I hope you have a great birthday. You could visit someone if they're in the hospital or if they're stuck at home because they're ill. You can meet people for coffee. There's 100 different ways that you can show up randomly. But the idea is this: if people in your small group are used to relying on the fact that you're going to be there every week consistently, then they trust you in that. But then there's this small impact of knowing that you show up at random moments that might be significant in their lives. So for me, I have a story to share with you from my own experience in youth ministry. I've led small groups for 15 years, and a lot of that time I led small groups with teenagers. And there's lots of ways to show up in a teenager's life, but in one church I went to, the youth pastor said that we had to personally call every single girl I had a high school small group of high school girls, and I had to call every single girl in my small group every single week. I hate the phone, so this was painful just because I didn't want to make phone calls, but also I don't know how many of you have ever tried to call a teenager and have a conversation. It's worse than going to the dentist. Literally, and I'm a rule follower, so on my way home from work, because I worked 9 to 5 at a publisher, so I'd sit in traffic in the city when I was leaving the city on the way home. And so I would dial up on the phone, and I just had my small group girls' numbers saved in my phone. And on my drive home, I'd call them one at a time, and if I caught them, then I'd just say, "Hey, this is Chrissy, just checking in, how are you?" And it was the same conversation every single time. I'd call them, and every girl was almost always the same. I'd call them, they'd say, "Hey," I'd say, "This is Chrissy," they'd say, "Hey," I'd say, "How are you?" They'd say, "Good." "How was school?" "Fine." "Are you coming to small group?" "I don't know." "Okay." "Anything else going on?" "No." "Can I pray for you?" "No." "Okay, I hope you have a good day." I mean, it was literally a string of 5 or 6 one-word answers, and then I awkwardly hung up. And I followed this pattern every single week, did these same calls, and I had like 10 or 15 girls. I mean, it was like painful over and over every week. And I probably did it for maybe 2 or 3 months. And then after all those weeks, I just thought, right, I'm busy, I'm tired when I get home from work, I'm really sick of doing this, I'm not gonna keep calling them, they don't even care if I call them. I will never forget the first week that I didn't call the girls, and I showed up at our small group, and 2 of the girls came running up to me and said, "Oh my gosh, are you mad at us?" And I was like, "What? No, why would I be mad at you?" And they said, "You didn't call us this week." And I just thought, you got to be kidding me. Like, you don't even talk to me. I'm sure I even said something like, "You don't even talk to me when I call you." But it was such an important reminder to me of how those small random moments where we show up in someone's life can be really meaningful and significant. Luckily, most of you are not doing small groups with teenagers, so hopefully your random moments where you show up will be moments where you could have perhaps a meaningful conversation, or you can show up in someone's life when they might need a little extra support or encouragement. But there's something about that will allow you to be present as a small group leader, and it builds trust and it builds community. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do. We want to connect people's faith to the community so that we have an opportunity to see them grow in discipleship and be transformed by God's word. So thanks so much for hanging out with us today. I hope that you found these 3 steps helpful to you, and I look forward to seeing you next time.